Okay, so Stephen A. Smith is in quite of a shitstorm following his comments on a show the other day, and then where he went on Fox News with Sean Hannity and doubled down on his words. His comments were about former President Donald Trump, talking about how the Democrats' political strategy of using the courts to stop him, but what really enraged his community was the fact that he said this.
Something that will probably be termed the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have.
So after Stephen A. Smith basically compared Trump's prosecution to that of his own community, talking about how they've been persecuted by the system, many people literally went on to attack Stephen A. Smith for making those comparisons. You had many black figures, and the NCAAP condemned Smith for his comments. Honestly, my take on this situation is that I think Stephen A. Smith is a conservative, but he just can't publicly announce that on his platform and to his viewers. He was raised by a single mother who had strict conservative values, which shouldn't come as a shock to many. I remember reading that out of all the Democrat voters, the black community were the most conservative. In fact, on PBD's podcast recently, he even mentioned his mother was a Democrat on the polls, but a Republican in private.
Was your mom a Republican or a Democrat?
My mother was a she was a Democrat at the polls. She was a Republican at home.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and that's one of the misnomers, to be quite honest with you, about a lot of folks. I certainly don't speak for all black people, or anybody. But when it comes to black folks, this is what I've known. Most of us have conservative values.
That just goes to show you how difficult it might be for some to publicly announce that in public for fear of judgment from their own community. Anyways, Stephen A. Smith, after doubling down and standing on what he said, finally issued a half apology where he looked to apologize but said he just gave his viewers the facts. Have a listen.
I wanted to touch on something that I made news about just a few days ago. Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. Accountability is where everything needs to begin in this world. It's something I say quite often. I certainly never hesitate to hold folks accountable when mistakes or mishaps occur, so I'm certainly not about to run from it myself. I'm fully aware that I've been in the news over the last few days, paraded all over social media as well, after comments I made during my appearance on Fox News' Hannity last week with the one and only Sean Hannity himself. And I'm fully aware of the outcry that has ensued because of it. A lot of folks in Black America seem pretty pissed at me right now, from friends and loved ones to colleagues, contemporaries, and dare I say even the NAACP itself. Quite a few folks were put off, if not flat out offended, after my words were interpreted as associating support for Trump from the black community with all the legal issues he's facing. For that, I sincerely apologize. To be clear, my words were misconstrued. I'm stating right here for the record that my words were taken out of context, misrepresenting and depicting me in a way I found every bit as insulting and disrespectful as folks in Black America evidently felt about what they thought I said. But I'll own it anyway. Because please know that I know the buck stops with me. I'm in the communication business. I've been here for 30 years, so regardless of whatever interpretation that accompanies any words coming out of my mouth, the responsibility ultimately lies with me first and foremost before anybody else. I've always felt that way. I still do. I always will. Period. Blacks who refuse to support Trump are aware of his history of issues. And we'll never forget how Trump claimed Obama, the nation's first black president, wasn't even qualified to hold office because he was born in Kenya, although Trump recanted the statement during his 2016 campaign run for the presidency. Yet Trump's dissenters were not the topic of discussion when I was talking to Hannity. The support he appears to be receiving in the polls was what was being discussed. 5 polls, count them, 5. Emerson, NBC News, Daily Kos, New York Times, and Rasmussen, all big national polls had Trump leading over the last few weeks. Plus, according to 538, recent local polls also put Trump ahead in battleground states. He's up 6 points in Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia each. Because I want to show you, I didn't just open my mouth. I read, I listened, and I've seen a momentum shift, as we all have. Anywhere I appear, no matter my subjectivity relating to what I feel, is still going to be based on facts being presented into the stratosphere. That is who I've always been. It is what I will always continue to be. But it's never exercised with malice in my heart and soul. Certainly never to insult or harm the black community, my community. My thoughts are put out there to present views I believe are pertinent, that alerts us to what's going on, what missteps may be taking place, and how, if at all, they could be corrected. I hope everyone can understand and appreciate my intent, if nothing else, as we march forward right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show. But just because my intent was harmless doesn't mean my words were harmless, and I know that. I can always do better, and I'll strive to do just that every single day that I'm alive.